Greetings, folks. Healer here. Today I'm going to talk about some changes that were announced on the World of Warships development blog for 096. These are planned balance changes, and they are still technically, quote, subject to further changes. But generally speaking, I found that when Wargaming announces intended changes on their development blog, those changes are pretty well final. Sometimes they tweak things at the last minute, but generally things are held pretty true. So this also gives me a chance to reiterate recommendations that I make to the general community about which websites to monitor about upcoming changes and announcements of changes or new content for World of Warships. The first one is to always go to the World of Warships website. I think Wargaming does a really good job trying to keep folks apprised of all the changes that are going on in the game. In the very first page, they've got the latest news. They'll always have articles that are listed as either important for today, which basically means that they've been announced today and that they're worth paying attention to. They'll also usually have one or two articles that are labeled important. These are things that were recently announced and they still want to sort of keep in the forefront of players' minds. And then they'll often have they will have other historical announcements like information about the public testing rounds that are going on, when they will occur, what the changes are. They'll talk about the combat missions and some other things that are happening. And they have a lot of other material that's available. And all of the history and news that get announced get put up on. Whoops, I'm not sure why the text got selected there, but all the material that Wargaming announces on their website is available here as well, and you can just go back through history and take a look at things. So this is a very good site to go and look at what officially has been announced and rolled out. The other very good place in my experience to find information about what is coming up, and this is the only official source that I'm aware of where things get formally announced by Wargaming about upcoming changes, is on their development blog. Now, historically, these blogs have been held on their Facebook page, and then later they were sort of blending between their Facebook page and another platform called Medium or medium.com. And it looks like in the last couple of months, Wargaming has now transitioned to a single source, which is blog.worldofwarships.com. And for the, like I said, for the last couple of months, this is where they've been rolling things out. So whenever you see somebody in the various forums, whether that be on Reddit or Facebook or the World of Warships forums, that says, hey, what's the latest news on some particular upcoming ship or planned changes or whatever, the only sources of truth, at least official, that I'm aware of are either the World of Warships website or here on the development blog. And pretty much anything else is going to be largely speculation. Sometimes the community contributors will let slip some things that they're aware of that haven't been yet announced by Wargaming, but I don't think that's the intention of Wargaming is to have the community contributors make those announcements on their own. The idea is that they'll be posted here. I should also note that it's not uncommon that the World of Warships uh, forum will also have. I'm going to go over here to the forum. It's not uncommon that the World of Warships forum will also have announcements, important, usually listed on the important topics here on the right hand side. That's another good source. But by and large, my experience has been either, like I said, the website or the development blog. So let me get to the changes that are been announced for 096. These are balance changes. The way to interpret balance changes is changes to mostly usually existing ships, or in fact they will always be to existing ships, to basically try to improve or modify their characteristics if they're overpowered or they're being power creeped, and they're trying to address that. So the most important thing that's been announced is the characteristic of armor piercing bombs from carriers is being changed. So by and large, AP bombs across the board, all ships, including premiums, both the Enterprise and the Graf Zeppelin, the AP bomb performance of the Alpha will be reduced. It's not. I don't think it's a particular secret that the AP bomb characteristics of these carriers are very powerful. They can take a very healthy ship and make it combat ineffective with one or sometimes just two strikes. if they're executed correctly. So they're trying to reduce the citadel damage, the overall alpha of the AP bombs, and so yeah, so a reduction of 17% across the board. The fact that they're even willing to do this to the premium ships means that Wargaming probably is taking the matter quite seriously, that they've looked at their data and they're just seeing that AP bomb performance is just too strong right now. And so I think that this, at least in my mind, seems sensible. I know that there are going to be lots of carrier players out there who are not going to be very enamored with this change, but I think in the interest of trying to, make the ships a little more balanced, I think that's a reasonable thing to do. Now, one other thing that was kind of interesting I noticed is that on the Shokaku, the armor penetration of the AP bombs will actually be increased by 8%. And based on my discussions, for example, with my colleague USS Irwin M. Fletcher, who is a Unicum carrier player, he has noted that some or maybe all of the Japanese aircraft carrier AP bombs cannot penetrate a number of the US Navy battleships to citadel them. And it's possible that this change, at least to the Shokaku, may allow them to do that. The problem is that I don't know what the penetration characteristics are of the AP bombs. It's not listed here in the on this website, so I don't know what an 8% increase really means in terms of the amount of additional armor that these bombs will penetrate. If somebody in the audience does know where to find that information, feel free to leave a comment in the video or on the video to specify where on, out there in the world is there information about the AP bomb characteristics. I will look at the World of Warships fitting tool that does have characteristics for artillery penetration, but I don't think, or at least last I checked, it didn't have information on AP bombs. Then there are a number of other changes that have been announced. The Graf Zeppelin, the aiming reticle the speed of its aiming will improve by 15%. The Tech Tree U.S. Navy destroyers, which can carry defensive AA fire. So this is the Nicholas clear through to the gearing. Their AA defensive fire consumable, the continuous damage will be increased from an additional 50% to an additional 75%. I think that there's probably going to be some mixed opinions about this. Obviously, there's a general feeling in the community that AA performance is pretty lackluster right now in general, other than maybe for some of the European destroyers. But I think this is an attempt to try to restore some of the AA capability that the U.S. Navy destroyers classically have had. This has been kind of their gimmick when these destroyers were released, or not shortly thereafter, a long time ago, and they've gradually been power crept on the AA front. And I think this is an attempt to try to restore some of that. Now, one thing that I noticed, and my colleague Jimmy Jazz also noticed, is that the premium U.S. Navy destroyers, so the Monahan, the Sims, the Kidd, and which can also carry defensive fire. I'm not sure if the Black can as well. They are not benefiting apparently from this change, which I thought was kind of interesting, because at least for those three ships, a key characteristic of them is better AA, and even above their same tier tech tree counterparts in the U.S. Navy line. So it's kind of have a mixed opinion about how useful this change really is going to be. We'll see. Now, I think the last really big change that was announced today is kind of an implicit recognition that the Venezia, the Tier 10 Tech Tree Italian heavy cruiser, is basically too powerful. So they have changed it so that her SAP shells will bounce at 70 degrees rather than at 75. So that should give some ships that are well angled a little more flexibility in terms of how much angling they need to offer to try to limit the SAP shell damage. The reload has been increased from 20 to 20.5 seconds. I don't know how big of a difference that's going to mean. And then the rudder shift time has been increased by a second. So to basically make these ships a little less maneuverable, make them presumably slightly easier to hit. I know that when I'm firing on an Italian cruiser, unless they're in very close range, even if they're presenting a full broadside, by the time my shells arrive, these ships are often angled well enough that they mitigate a lot of potential damage. So I think that this, again, the collection of these changes is a reasonable recognition that the Venezia has become a very powerful, or maybe is too powerful for where it should be. And then the last point here is that the engine boost modification 1 upgrade, this is a special upgrade that you can put into slot 2 of your upgrade slots. The increase the action time is going to be reduced from 50% to 40%. This is an upgrade that's very popular with the Soviet and French gunboat destroyers. Again, I don't see that this is going to be too much of a big deal. It basically means that you will be, instead of going ludicrous speed for a 50% additional time, it will just be an additional 40% time, and then you'll have to go back to stupidly fast for a little bit longer. So whatever. So I don't think this is going to be too much of a big change. So those were the changes, again, announced today. There are other changes that you can check out on the blog. They announced some changes to the test ships for 951, mostly to the German upcoming German aircraft carriers. No, one thing that was kind of interesting is that the secondary battery performance and accuracy for all of the carriers tech tree from tier 4 to tier 10 will now get a dispersion characteristic or accuracy characteristic similar to the Massachusetts, which basically means that without even specking into any secondary skills, these secondaries will actually be reasonably accurate. And then there were some other changes that they made to the upcoming German carriers as well for testing in 0951. And then, as I mentioned, there are a number of other changes, and you can look at all of the other announcements that have been made on the development blog. I hope that the information here was useful and interesting. Again, please do bookmark both this website and the official World of Warships website. You should look at them regularly if you want to stay abreast of upcoming changes in the game. And 90+% of any questions that most people have about what changes may be coming up, these are the sources to go to get official information. And if you can't find them here, generally speaking, nothing's been formally announced by Wargaming. So I think that's it. Thanks again for jumping in and checking out the video. And we hope to see you out there in the virtual seas. And we wish you happy sailing.